Um, from a small town, Conyers, Georgia, so right up 316 from here. Always been type A overachiever personality. Was always super involved at school and at church, and I'm I consider myself to be a pretty normal upbringing. So I have two little sisters and a little brother, and I'm lucky enough to have both my parents at home. I think it's kind of the disbelief that there's still genuinely good people in the world. I feel like the older you get and the more negative experiences you have, the more distrusting you are of other human beings, because you're like, okay, you must have an ulterior motive, or there must be something wrong. So because you may have had X number of negative experiences, you already have that guard up when when you're preparing to encounter a positive one. I am a believer in that slavery is a mindset, and unfortunately, some of those things like the separation of families and other underlying factors of that experience have resurfaced in black families today. And I will say the one thing I am a strong believer is, like, because mothers had to do it by themselves, that it's just escalated over time. So it's kind of like, well, I don't need your daddy. He can go. Because black women, we were the rock of families, and we're still the rock of black families. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's escalated to the point where women feel like they can just do it on their own. So they're not really looking, like, okay, where's my mate? Or, who's my partner? And I also think that it's just the modern culture of it being career first. Let me get myself together, I don't need to have kids right now. So things like that also affect the family culture of today. I don't associate coming to college with becoming more, quote unquote, in touch with my black identity. I've always known I am an African American, and there's nothing I can do about that. Let me be the best person I can be and just do what I need to do, if that makes sense, And I've always been aware of where I come from and the struggle of my people. So when I came to college, it was more so about being a better Jasmine and learning who I was and growing up. And I will say that even though not all of it was easy and my start here was rough, I've grown so much. And even though college, and realistically, it's only 4 years, it's a very short period of time to say that you've grown. But I'll say every year I've grown so much and discovered new facets of myself that I never thought about, and just realized certain things about myself. So I've really just grown as a person to become a better Jasmine, not necessarily grown to become a stronger black woman.
I grew up in between 5 Points and Beechwood. It's technically in 5 Points, but it's like off a Millage Circle, close to Beechwood.
Is it close to UGA?
Yes. I actually went to school all on Baxter Street, more or less. Like, I went to Alps Road Elementary, and then Clark Middle, and then Clark Central, and now UGA. It was different in that at UGA there was actually space for queer people. In my high school, I didn't really feel like there was a lot of LGBTQ representation. I then identified as a lesbian, and then coming into college, I fell in with a community that really supported me to find my gender identity, and now I identify as a queer transgender man. So
you're getting married?
Yeah, I am. Her name is Casey. I won't keep that confidential. And she is also here at UGA. She went to undergrad at UNC, and she's getting her master's in social work, and I'm getting my undergraduate degree in social work. It's kind of bizarre. I know things grow and change, but I have some concerns about how things are growing and changing for specific people and not for others.
And those specific people are?
Affluent students who come here as tourists, more or less, in my opinion.
And then leave.
Yeah.
And don't contribute to the community.
Yeah. Don't have to deal with the persistent issues that face Athens as a community now. Mm-hmm. I think it certainly has the opportunity to change. It's a pretty incredible institution that has done a lot.
I'm from Valdosta, Georgia.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
What is that like?
20 minutes from the Florida border. Pretty small, extremely hot, so it's probably about 70, 80 right now in February, which is insane. But yeah, small town. I went to the same school all from like kindergarten to high school. Graduated with 21 people, so UGA was like a huge shock for me. I actually am in a sorority, but I have involved myself in other things on campus, so that is not my only identifier. You know, that was for my first year. I was like, oh, I'm definitely in a sorority. Like, all I wear is the t-shirts and whatever. But I've kind of seen over the years that you have to adopt other personalities so that you can not get caught up in that one type of like Greek life here on campus, because it is so large. You have your big chapters of girls and your big chapters of boys, and you know, it does have a huge stereotype, I think, you know, the drinking and the drugs and the money, and you know, most of those things are true, but you have to get to know the people beneath the money and the alcohol and the drugs and the clothes too, because you know, there is more depth there for most people, I would say. Yeah.
That's an interesting story. Well, first off, my name is Manny Elsar, but formerly ITooAmUGA Elsar. I'm a second year here at the University of Georgia. I'm a double major in econ and international affairs, minor in Spanish. My parents are originally from Africa, specifically Liberia, West Africa. I was born in New Jersey. I moved to Georgia in middle school, and I've been here ever since. When I would ask my parents about growing up in Liberia, they'd always refer back to their whole education and how they struggled when it came to going to school every day, whether it be walking miles, because for some reason, a lot of African parents tend to elaborate when it comes to their education. So I always used to hear the story of my parents walking miles upon miles to get to school. So I mean, like, I appreciate them telling me stuff about that, and I guess just learning about how they struggled when it came to living in Africa and then moving eventually to the United States, and it teaches you about something. It teaches you good things. So I do identify as a Liberian American, but it doesn't necessarily mean I won't identify with being black in the United States. Like, I understand, like, being black in this country has its own tribulations, has its own struggles, and also has its great strengths. But when it comes to coalescing that identity with being African, I guess there are differences there only because my parents didn't necessarily teach me that the civil rights movement and the movements after that necessarily affected me, because it didn't affect them when they first came here. Like, my parents came here in the 80s. They didn't necessarily experience what the civil rights movement meant in the 60s and the late 70s. So when it came to that aspect, I would just say they didn't necessarily focus on the negative aspects of being black. They more focused on you. They always used to tell me, you know, you are black in the United States, but that doesn't mean anything. You have to just succeed. You have to look past that and just be a man of your word and just succeed in school, succeed in relationships, succeed in whatever you may face. So when it comes to combining those two identities, it's been an interesting struggle, but it's been a struggle nonetheless. Or it's been a fun struggle nonetheless.
I'm from a small town called Gray, Georgia. If you know where Macon is and you know where Milledgeville is, Gray, Georgia is the road that goes in between. It's kind of a hop skip kind of place. It's a great place. There's really, really sweet people there. Got a wonderful big family. All my dad's side lives in Gray, and we all live on just about the same road, and we run around wearing tie-dyes, and it's a lot of fun. We're out in the boonies and all that, and it's a good thing. I play saxophone. As I said, tie-dyes, I make tie-dyes and stuff like that. I love music. I love people. I love life in general. Talking about a lot is microaggressions and things like that. And, you know, there's some knowledge about that I think about some. And maybe because I'm a Caucasian male, so I'm not particularly the minority. But I don't think microaggressions just go to minorities. You know, I think microaggressions go towards everybody. all kinds of things. Whether it be just race, or whether it be gender, or whether it be age, there's a lot of different types of microaggressions, and I think that's important to realize. A specific example of myself having a microaggression, the black and white affair. So I go and I'm all dressed up, and I got my nice suit on and everything, and I'm ready to jam a little. And I walk in this room, and I was the only Caucasian male there that I could see. And I looked around and I thought to myself, and it's just one of those, I guess this would qualify as a microaggression. I just thought, what am I doing here? You know? Do I belong right here? And like, I know that seems like a terrible thing to say, but it's just a natural response that society has taught me and teaches so many of us in many respects. If you don't see the physical evidence that you belong with the group, you question a lot. So in that moment, I felt that. and then I stopped and I thought, that's not why I'm here. That doesn't matter. It's not about physical, because all these people here are just alike. We're here for the same reason, to support this cause, and we're all just people. We're all just good folks. And it just took me a second to step back, get out of my societal bubble that I've been placed in, and just realize what the most important thing is that we're all the same on the inside, and that we all have similar goals, and we all want good things for each other and people around the world.
I am from Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised. I'm an openly gay student at this campus, which is viewed as a historically conservative campus. So it's been an interesting experience over the 4 years. I've always felt loved and supported by my community of friends. However, there have been instances over the years where being a gay student on a campus hasn't felt the most invited. So my junior year, there was an act of hate speech in which someone posted on the LGBT community's Facebook page, and I can't quote the exact words, nor do I necessarily want to, because they're pretty hurtful and just insinuated that we weren't welcome at the university. And coincidentally, that happened about a week after I had decided to run for student body vice president. So it was a very weird state of emotions, because I just made this pretty huge commitment, which I had already been doubting, and then finally had tagged on to this team that I had asked to become a part of. And then this happened and it made me doubt. But then that reminded me why I was pursuing that position. It wasn't just to give voice to gay students, but to any student who felt as if their voice had ever been excluded or unwanted at this university. So through my role as SJ Vice President, I've tried to give voice to not just LGBT concerns, but to the concerns of all minority students on campus who've ever felt like they might be lesser than. Because I know that UGA truly is a bulldog nation of, I think, 250,000 alumni strong, and it is all inclusive. And I know they're isolated events, and it's definitely not the opinion of the majority. But the fact is that it's still, it's still reality for many gay students on campus that they don't necessarily feel fully welcome by everyone at this university. So that's really what I've tried to do in this past year, is just work in any capacity I can to bridge those gaps and ensure that all students, fully feel a part of this family.
I believe community is a group of people bound together by some sort of factor. Like, for example, let's take the UGA community. We have students, we have football fans, we have faculty, we have staff, we have alumni, but we're all connected through the university. We all have that common bond. And the lines really get blurry when you talk about how someone can be a member of more than one community. You can be a member of a political party. You can identify with minority status, being a part of that community, like the African American community or the LGBT community. You can identify as being a community even with something as trivial as a little book club. So the reason we value community so much is because we're social creatures. We want to find that common bond with one another where I can connect to you and I can connect to other sorts of people, because we are, like I said, social creatures.
ITooAmUGA main, I guess, beginning focal point was something that occurred across predominantly white institutions in not only the United States but overseas as well. Cambridge University, ITooAmHarvard, there was Georgia Tech, and so I brought it to UGA as well with ITooAmUGA, and it's basically a platform, a campaign, a movement to not showcase, but to give the Black community at UGA a voice, to basically say that we are here. Things occur, things happen that our white counterparts or even other minorities don't know about. As well as the racial microaggressions that we, deal with every day, whether it's on campus, whether it's downtown, and the likes of those. So it was just a public platform of things that could have been talked about in secret.
You're my boss. I'm interviewing my boss.
In April of 2014, it was a Black voiced organization. It was at that root focal point to where everybody that I encountered, everybody that I got to basically tell me about the racial microaggressions and different things they dealt with, it was Black people. In recent time period, talking to Tafara and with Student Government Association and different things like that, we kind of broaden it to a more marginalized group because it's not only Black people who deal with different microaggressions on campus, but there's other people. My freshman year, I had a roommate that we just really didn't agree on a lot of things. It was two strong-minded women who just really didn't agree on different things. And I guess a tolerance of that, of being with somebody new, somebody random, first-year experience, being able to cope and deal with that, and, that being your first image of the University of Georgia, you didn't want that to be your reasoning for dropping out or not staying at the school. So that was my main racial microaggression that I dealt with during that time period that caused me to see ITooAms at different schools on Tumblr and Twitter and Facebook, and then I decided to bring that to the university. An educated Black woman comes with the stigma of you have to be the quote-unquote Black elite or the 10% that's doing what those Black stereotypes are not doing. I'm a Black woman, meaning that I can't separate my Blackness and I can't separate the fact that I'm a woman. I'm a Black woman in all ties of it. And so inspire yourself as well. Just say that I know that I can make it through it, because this has not been the lowest point in my life, and it may not be my lowest point, but I know that I can push through whatever it is that I'm going through.